they may not see themselves as colonizers, but they are moving like settlers. Their actions and the entitlement that they are moving with are giving colonizer vibes. Have you guys seen the video of the African American woman who moved to Ghana and is complaining that she's being treated like a foreigner?
Y'all invited us to come home, which by the thousands we did. We came running to Ghana. People sold their homes, moved out of their apartments, sold everything. Some people packed up containers and moved over here just to get over here and realize this is not our home. Y'all call us foreigners. Ghanaians call us that. We didn't make that word up. We didn't start calling ourselves that. We don't know that that's what y'all call the white people and the Chinese because we're not around them. But we know that that's what y'all call us. I ain't never heard the word before, Tabi, till I came to Ghana.
As I've said in other videos, we as Black people need to stop expecting this Black solidarity from other people just because they're Black. Most of us, myself included, when you go abroad, when you go into a foreign country, you are moving first and foremost with your nationality. You're moving first and foremost as a Jamaican, as a Canadian, as British, as an American. And that is how people are going to see you first. You are no less of a foreigner than a white American who is going there. And I get that there are certain expectations because the Ghanaian government said, oh, everybody come home, all Black people come home. But I have to assume that this is a person who has not spent significant time in another country to recognize that the government may officially say, okay, all Black people come home. But that does not mean that that is the voice of the local people that you're going to have to live with. That's the government decision. That does not mean that the local people are automatically going to say, oh, come home, my Black brothers and sisters, come home. Living amongst the people, being open and willing to learn the local culture, taking the time and being patient to understand that it is when those people say, okay, this is a person who is one of us, that is when you're no longer a foreigner. And if you don't understand that, you really should not be moving to live in a foreign country. And I'm saying this as someone who effed up the first time I moved abroad and moved to a Black majority country and also had those expectations. And I did not understand the cultural aspect of it, wherein I needed to gain the trust of those people. I needed to understand their culture. I needed to present myself as someone who wasn't moving in like another tourist, but someone who was respectful of their culture and willing to learn and understand it. And until we do that, when we move into a different culture, we will always be seen as foreigners. The other thing she complained about was, oh, the government invited us and then we had to pay all these monies to move into the country, and all this money was required. Yes, dear, that's what moving abroad involves. And I have news for you about how much it costs to move to the United States. The idea that you would be able to get up and move to a foreign country without having those upfront costs for processing of documentation, for the visas and for everything else is absurd to me, and actually makes me inclined to believe that you were in fact moving in the country as an American and not as a Black person, because that's an American mentality of thinking that you could just get up and move somewhere without having to go through those processes. And there's also a series of videos where Ghanaians are complaining about the Black Americans who have taken up the government's call, who have moved there and are in effect gentrifying the place. African Americans who are moving into Black majority countries in Africa, in the Caribbean, in South America, wherever, listening to the stories of people in these countries, I think there are some African Americans who are moving into these countries in the global South as colonizers. They may not see themselves as colonizers, but they are moving like settlers. Their actions and the entitlement that they are moving with are giving colonizer vibes. By that I mean displacing the local people, disrespecting the local culture, doing all the things to uproot the natives that a colonizer would do, to make life difficult, to make life more expensive, to make the native people uncomfortable in their own environment. I'm not saying this is solely an African American issue, but I'm saying that in the same way that we can recognize when white people are moving into spaces and gentrifying it, when white people are moving into global south countries as settlers and colonizers, we also need to recognize that behavior in ourselves, because we tend to think that, oh, black people can't do these things. Oh, yes, we do. And if we're not willing to recognize and acknowledge that behavior in ourselves, then we're just going to be unwitting participants in the continued displacement of black people in the global south.